She Seems Legit here with another sewing video. If you're new here, I turn fabric into something fabulous. And I thrift flip clothes that need a little love. In this video, we're going to be making this jacket. I've always wanted this jacket for so long now. I just couldn't justify the price of spending that much for a jacket that I'm probably going to only wear for like 2 times a month because we are in quarantine. So like, what's the point of spending that money on something that people won't even see? I started in the beginning of February and now it is mid-April. I am officially done this jacket. The reason why it took me this long to make this jacket is because I didn't have a pattern. The only thing that I had on me was like a pattern for sleeves and a pattern for the pockets. I didn't have anything else. I didn't even know how to make the shell of the jacket before we throw it back to 2.5 months ago. Not 200, oh my goodness. I made this jacket longer than I was alive. Make sure you like, subscribe, you know the drill, all that jazz, you know. Hit all the buttons. Let's throw it back to the time where I thought this project was gonna be easier than expected.
Since I didn't have a pattern, I used a jacket that I already owned for guidance. This is the first time I've ever sketched a pattern, so wish me luck. We need 2 fronts, 2 sides, and a back. The side didn't have a photo of the back, but we all know what the back of a jacket looks like. So I'm just transferring the measurements over to my drafting paper. And since we want a looser fit for the jacket, a lot of math was involved. 1 + 1 = exhausting. This is what we came up with. We have the 2 fronts, 2 sides, and the back as I mentioned earlier, and we're going to use these patterns to cut out the following: fabric, lining, and the interfacing. We're going to start off with the fabric, and then we're going to pin the shoulders and the sides to see if the measurements of the pattern made the cut. And oh my goodness, it fits. My math actually worked. Doing a low-key victory can because it's too early to celebrate. My armpit's a little bit snug, but we can fix that. Before we can fully commit to sewing the fabric together, we need to put the interfacing in. So let's go, yeah. Getting into the rhythm of ironing on our fusible interfacing onto the inside of the fabric. This little powerful thin sheet does so much. It gives your clothes a little bit more structure. Look at those imprinted diamonds. My eyes. Let's press on though. I'm just pinning the sides and the shoulders again, right sides facing each other, and then I'm going to permanently straight stitch it together. I'm going to put a pin in it and stop talking.
I do have a pattern from a previous project that I did. So this is the pattern that I have for a sleeve. The reason why it has the little like lump on top of it is because this is the part that actually goes on the shoulder.
This is not the length that we want. I'm gonna have to remeasure my arm length from the top of the shoulder to the rest.
This is so hard doing when it's just you. I need a friend right now.
I could really use a shoulder to lean on right now. So I measured 22 inches. We're going to use the pattern to cut off 2 pieces of fabric and the interfacing, and then I'm going to cut a little past the pattern because I want 22 inches. She really thinks she's invincible. Little did she know, the worst is yet to come. So we're folding the sleeves right sides facing each other, marking the measurements of the circumference of our arms. Ooh, circumference math. And we're going to straight stitch along the pins. So we're going to input the sleeves into the armhole, right sides facing each other. Shout out to Louise for making my life easier. Don't mind my loose threads. This is probably my 15th attempt. The armholes were not aligning. I always ended up with excess fabric. This is where it got tough. I was getting to the point where I was just going in circles and not finding a solution. I wish I could have found this part humorous at this time. The fit just didn't sit right with me. Someone tell me I can do it.
You can finish this jacket. You got this.
Finally got it 2 weeks later. Better late than never. Here are close-ups, just taking this moment all in. I'm using a pocket pattern from a previous project and just expanding it so my own hands fit. Imagine using this exact pattern. I would only be able to fit 1 finger or just a little 1 fun-size snicker. That would be so sad. I'm just cutting 4 pieces of the same pattern from my lining and placing them wherever feels right. I'm going to place the pocket on the first seam on the front of the jacket. I'm just marking the top and bottom, and I'm going to seam rip it open since we already shut it closed. I'm going to pin the pieces on the right side of the fabric and then sew it in place. So now you see why we sewed it on the right side, because once we tug it in, we got the opening of the pockets. So we're just going to shut it closed and give the jacket what it deserves. Pockets are a make or break it for me. Whenever I have to buy anything, like I always think, where am I going to put my phone? We got our incognito pockets. Even I didn't even know where they were. Got them. Hello from the inside. Imagine you're walking down the street, damn, you open your jacket and you just feel so exposed because their interfacing is all out in the open. So we're gonna need to add lining. I cut off 5.5 inches of fabric similar to the shape of the front of the jacket, and half of that is for seam allowance. So when you're now walking down the street and bam, you see the fabric similar to the outside of the jacket. So with the right sides facing each other, I went ahead and straight stitched along the edges, and yes, she seems legit, so legit. Back to our friend Louise, we don't want the collar to connect to the lining directly, so we need a draft fabric to sit on the neckline. So I'm just measuring the width of the top of the fabric that we just sewed in, and that ended up with a paper-sized sliced cantaloupe. And then I'm going to cut fabric into the same shape. We're going to have to adjust the lining since we adjusted the shell of the jacket multiple times. We got a lot to cut off. Yeah, guilty. I'm a fabric lining waster. And I'm going to eventually take the lining off the shell so that we can sew all the pieces of the line together just like one big happy family. We're going to connect her to her parents, and obviously with the right sides facing each other, we're going to sew the edge of the fabric to the lining. Rolling up her sleeves to work on other sleeves. Similar to the fun times with the armholes earlier, we're gonna sew along the pins. This was way easier than the first try. I actually kept a secret gap in the sleeve, which will be useful later on. So I'm flipping it fast because I can't wait any longer. She is so beautiful. I feel like a proud mom.
So we are going to be chilling on the ground today because I wanted to bring all the attention to the bottom of the jacket. The jacket also wants to chill on the ground with me today.
In all the jackets that I own, I just realized that the front of the fabric is also at the bottom, attached to the lining. Of course, I forgot that step and I already sewn in the sides, so we need to improvise. I decided to cut 2 inches of fabric that will fit between the 2 sides of the fabric on the inside, and we need to figure out how to sew the actual lining on. New step, new challenge. Challenge accepted.
I don't know if that's going to work, but it makes logical sense in my head.
So it begins. I'm pinning the left and then the right side, and I'm going to close the bottom of the jacket by just pinning it shut. And for the actual lining, I'm pulling 2 inches of the lining and pinning it close to the edge of the fabric. Don't forget, make sure your right sides are facing each other before you go ahead and sew it.
Stitch. Fluff everywhere.
This is the silver lining I was looking for. I'm so happy. So we're now going to iron the seams down because bulking season is over. We want to be thin for the summer. Oh, the irony as I make a winter jacket. We're going to line our sleeves. We're going to fold our edge about 1 inch and then press it down. Making sure that we're facing the inside of the sleeves and then the inside of the lining before we go ahead and pin it and sew it together. Kind of guessed this step, so I'm kind of excited to see what it looks like. And oh, wow, I am so impressed. I am so good. Okay, ego check, taking it down, but like, wow. Collar professional, because we are about to draft another pattern. We are going to measure the front of the neckline from the top of the shoulder to the front, and then we're going to measure the back, but split it in half because we only want one side of the collar. Ooh, she's an architect. We're going to draw a straight line and then a perpendicular line to it. Measure how high you want the collar to be. I chose about 4 inches because I don't want people to see my profile. So I got 5 inches for the back and 5.5 inches for the front. And since we're gonna stitch the collar on the neckline, which is a curve, I'm gonna use my French ruler to mark 1 inch up, and then we're gonna mark a straight line on an angle, and then measuring the 4 inches, and then we're gonna use my French ruler again just to make the line nicer. We're gonna cut 2 pieces of fabric and 1 interspacing with this pattern. I transferred over this pattern over to my drafting paper and gave it a little bit of an allowance just so it's easier for me to cut it out.
Okay, so we got our two collars. Two collars because we're gonna sew the right sides facing each other, and then we are going to pin and sew along just the top, and then the sides we're going to leave the bottom open so that we can attach it to the bodice of the jacket.
I actually learned how to draft a pattern from a YouTube video, so I'm going to link that in the description box below, just because you gotta give credit where it's due. Don't look at me, she says. Called her professional, but she doesn't even know how to attach her collar onto the jacket.
I did my research. I went on YouTube. I watched all the videos that I wanted to watch, and I still don't get it. I don't get it. I honestly don't.
I decided to just attach one side of the fabric to the back of the jacket and called it a day.
So this is what it's gonna look like if I attach the back part to the jacket to the back part of the collar. Okay, cool.
We need the neckline to still be open so we can put our buttons on later on.
So currently this is what the jacket looks like. Honestly, I think I'm rocking the 80s look, but it doesn't close in the neck areas. It was supposed to be a straight but you know, the collar doesn't fit my face. But what could you do? I originally did it on here for a test run. I didn't like it. And then this girl decided to poke a hole on the front of the jacket, and I am stressed. We're gonna finish this jacket strong.
We're going to line the ends of the jacket with this because we want to avoid the lining from rolling over to the front. They gotta know their place. I'm stitching the tape closer to the edge and made eye contact. Let's just zoom in for more details. You can use a hem tape foot, but I decided to just use my fingers and hug the edges every time I stitch because I love doing more work. For the corners, I would lift up my foot and then turn it on the angle, sew it a little bit, turn it again, and continue sewing. As for the ends, I folded it twice so you don't see the raw edge. I sewed it closed. I only had one bulky corner, so I can live with that. Not to be biased, but this is probably the prettiest jacket I ever did see. I measured where I wanted the buttons to be around 4 inches apart, so we're going to make a hole. We're going to start on the side where the button will actually close onto. Then take the base, shove it through the neckline, put it in between the outside and the lining, and then take the other side, take this circle tool, whatever this is, and then you can rest the hole so then when we hammer it in, it'll stay put. She went from sewer to architect to carpenter real quick. Once that's secured, we're going to work on the side that's actually going to do the snapping. So we're going to make a hole. Instead of putting it on the outside where the button is visible, we want to hide that. So again, we're going to shove it through the neckline, and then we're going to place the other side on the inside lining, and then we're going to take that circle thing again, and then we're gonna hammer it down. Broadening my DIY skills to a whole new level. We got buttons. I mean, we can do without buttons, but then my jacket kind of looks like a robe and I didn't like that.
I have straps that I already had from cutting off too much fabric off the jacket. We want to make sure straps fits around our waist, and it does. I cut it 2.5 so then I can use half of that for the seam allowance. If you're one of the people that miss hugs, I suggest you go down a little so it feels like you're being hugged by someone, I guess. I don't know. I hate hugs. I hate kisses on cheeks. It's gross emotion. Ew. We're going to sew the right sides together, and then obviously we're going to flip it out to make these straps.
So I stuck a pin to one end, and then I'm just pushing it through the other.
Oh, it's kind of looking thick, and the seams are rounding up again. So I decided to straight stitch. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to straight stitch it all the way down. I might put bias tape at the end because the ends are kind of fraying.
I'm taking a little bit of my bias tape. I'm just sewing it to the sides of the outside of the jacket to make a little home for my belt. Closing time. Remember that secret hole that we had? So we're just going to pull out the collar through that if it ever comes out. Okay, I'm gonna do this off camera because I'm getting frustrated. Finally got it out, and we're gonna stitch it closed. Before I forget, which I personally did, you're gonna stitch the hole in the sleeve closed, and then you can say that you're done. Be right back while I go cry. Happy tears, of course. In the meantime, you can see me trying the jacket that I've always wanted.